Yeah, and I don't know, I think we have been spun so many like capitalist narratives that it's hard to figure out how much of it is me and how much of it is like legit. Like, um, you see it. Well, okay. Do you know the podcast My Favorite Murder?
Sounds familiar though, but keep going.
It's these two white girls. It's an interesting podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but they talk about murders. Um, and it's really successful. But for the first like little while, um, I remember like it felt like they were just these two gals that were talking about murder and making it like and were interesting, and it felt like it organically like took off, like it got popular, and like that's how like it's just because the story like resonated
Mm-hmm.
with people. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but what I hadn't really realized is the two hosts, like they both have like really successful television careers. Like one of them was a
Mm-hmm.
host of a TV show, the other one has been like a writer and like then production work like on the
They're
back
like
end of
already
like
connected and
yeah. And like okay, so to do this interview with you and to do my podcast, I borrow this microphone from a friend at the studio I work at, and
mm-hmm.
I borrow it from them every time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great. But like microphones are expensive, and if
Yeah.
I didn't have that, and like the production value on their podcast has always been really good. Like they'll laugh and say that it wasn't, but like it is always going to be miles away from what like the average person is starting with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they're not starting at ground zero. And so, but we're, and I don't think this is unique to them. I think a lot of popular podcasts like happen to have people who have like real connections to entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like in our heads, we're like, oh, well, if I'm doing this podcast, I should be able to monetize it. But I like, is that because I think sometimes it's just because so often we're like shown these stories of people who monetized out of nowhere as if they
Mm-hmm.
weren't.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and it's like what's happening to this sort of gold rush of podcasting, like this second wave gold rush of podcasting, reminds me of so much of what happens to a lot of different platforms, where they're talking about Instagram or YouTube, where there's this rush of people going to these platforms, and a lot of them are easy to start off, and you look up YouTube videos like how to start a podcast, and you see that the actual like guts of you know shooting and interviewing and like the actual steps themselves aren't very difficult, but the nuanced things within it, like the recording equipment that you have, the whether or not you can do video, whether or not you have people who can actually um, edit them for you, because so many of uh, these podcasts, like a lot of them look really well produced and really simple, but then you go on the back end and you realize it's even more complex. Like there are researchers and writers and editors, and you're just like, does my podcast of a production team of one or two people, like, can like, do I stand a chance? And like, it's, I mean, I know that podcasting has been pretty corporatized for a really long time, but I think, speaking to your point, like on one hand, there is this allure that anybody can do it. Anybody can really take like a phenomenal idea, and as long as it's executed well enough, and if it's interesting enough, and your episodes are interesting enough, and if your guests are interesting enough, then it's just going to hit.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, you go through this process of like, okay, I'm posting, I'm editing, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, but like, where are the results? No one's watching. Where's the money from the monetization? And so sometimes you're just like, is this for me? And it can be discouraging sometimes.
I try really hard for What If They Had Friends to just remind myself that I'm doing this because it's fun. It's like a fun storytelling exercise. So like I've taken a break from it for a bit. It's not over. Like I'm still gonna do episodes. I just I'm taking a break till I can like find the right space slash till my partner gets permanent residency so I can like really like do it without stressing. But I try really hard to like just remind myself that like there's no set schedule. I'm not making money on this, so it it doesn't like I don't have to stress about it. Like I don't have to internalize the stress I take to all my other projects and put it to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it's just not gonna be. There's millions of podcasts out there, and I'm sure there's another person out there doing a very similar concept to me. So I just try to like really like this is the thing I really try to hold on to as like a fun project. Yeah.
Yeah, just something like you can, and that's what I'm trying to learn to do as well, because like I think that one of the troubles with being uh, someone who likes to do different creative work is you always want to scratch that creative itch, but then there's always a part of you that's also asking like, like, can I make money off of this? And so you're, unfortunately, art just doesn't pay. Art is something that is for so many people. It's a pivotal aspect of their life. It's something that's very therapeutic, but something that doesn't pay, and there's oftentimes a discouragement of people who get into art and being able to express themselves creatively.